How's it going, Quiet Warriors? This is the Quiet Warrior podcast. I am your host, Scott Stevens, Quiet Warrior 6, as I like to call myself. This podcast, we're talking about being quiet warriors and what it's like and what we're doing and um, why it's important. And again, like quiet warriors, a lot of times people are like, what is quiet warrior? What does that mean? Where does that come from? And a lot of it's just the normal everyday guy that gets up and does his duty without fanfare or complaint. He just quietly goes about his necessary duties. Um, I kind of got this idea, like the image in my head is actually a guy like he's my mom's cousin's husband. He's just kind of this quiet guy that always tries to do the right thing. And I he doesn't bring any attention to himself. Like rarely does he ever bring attention to himself, but he goes about what he does. And I think he was raised that way. I think that's why his father was. And I just see a lot of men that are like that, that just go about their business. They know that they have an important duty and to take care of their families, and they just do it. And I don't know. That's to me, it's motivating, it's inspirational, and it's somewhat humbling uh, to associate with men like that. And so that's what this podcast is about. That's what the Quiet Warrior is all about. Like the business end of it is to provide products to him, to help him continue to protect and provide, to have both the support as well as the capability, if you will, the nutrition, again, like our supplements, like storm support and stuff like that, to provide energy and focus so that he can continue to do his duty. But just a couple of things, just want to add more to kind of building out this company and what we're doing and how we've done it. In doing it, I wanted to create something too, like that was as men kind of join the community of the Quiet Warrior, I wanted to have something that we could kind of share, like shared values in a sense. But I didn't want to get into values because values are so subjective and so personal. I wanted to have something more like principles, things that had not just that you value, but that have deep meaning. And that's where I came up with the idea of the Quiet Warrior principles. There's 7 of them. I spent a lot of time just thinking about each one of them and what would go into that. And like, again, like observing men, things that my personal uh, values, if you will, as personal things I try to live by. And I came up again, like I said, 7 principles. And like the first 2 are honor and dignity, which those are the first 2 for a purpose and a reason. Like one of the things is I just want men to feel like they have dignity, that they can hold their head up, like that they're important, and that they're not just important not for their ego, but for their families. They're important for their communities, for them to uh stand up and be seen, right? Just hold their heads up and know that know their value, if you will. Obviously, honor is one of the most important things in our lives, especially as men, is to have honor and what that means. And we'll get into that in probably subsequent podcasts, what I mean by honor. But to go through all of the 7 principles. The third one is excellence, to live with excellence, to do our best and the things that matter most. After that is, gosh, I should have these memorized. I have this whole, actually have a list of them right here in front of me. You probably can't see this very well because of the thing, but um, after excellence is to have self-discipline, to discipline ourselves, to discipline our behaviors so that we can accomplish the things we want to accomplish. To have character. And what I mean by character, a lot of times, character is kind of a broad principle, but mostly is like to be yourself, who you are as a person, and to be confident in that person, right? Like there's so many things that are telling us who we should be, but I just want to help quiet warriors be like, this is who you are, right? And be who you are. If you're whatever your interests are, whatever your lifestyle is, if you will, that's your character. Integrity, again, doing what you'll say you'll do, which is extremely important. That's the 6th principle. And the last one is pretty much my favorite one, though, actually, is compassion. Being compassionate to those around us, which is, it's hard. As I say, that's my favorite. It's also probably the hardest one for me to live by, is to be compassionate, and not necessarily compassionate to those that are below me. And that came out wrong. Not necessarily below me, but maybe like have a harder life, or harder up in life than I am. But to those that are above, right? Those that are maybe have an easier life, because I don't know, I hold myself to such a high standard of how I should act and behave and do, that if you're, like a leader of mine or something like that, like in fact today in my in counseling, I was talking about this with my counselors, like if you're chosen above me, then you better be damn well better than I am, right? Like that's how I look at it, and which isn't so much a lot of compassion, right? A lot of times people are in those positions, not on their own volition or whatever. And so having compassion towards them, it's a difficult thing for me though, because I'm like, look, if you're chosen and I wasn't chosen, I have that kind of ego jealousy, I guess, that's within me, and something I have to deal with. And like I will deal with it, and I'm working at dealing with it. Um and that's okay, right? Like just, I think that goes back to character. That's who I am as a person, and it's something I have to work on to become a better man. But so each one of those has like a kind of a saying with each one of them to kind of define them. Like dignity is recognizing my importance, honor. Um, gosh, I remember these things, but like honor is I probably should just stick with all these things. But what I'm getting at is excellence. I want to get to excellence. That's the principle that this month that I've been posting quotes and memes in the Quiet Warrior on my Facebook posts and stuff. And that's kind of the principle that I've been working towards, is excellence. And a lot of times with excellence, a lot of again, it can be somewhat broad to think about, right? Like there's so many things that we can think about with excellence. But one of the things that helps me thinking about excellence is it's a biblical story. It's in the New Testament. It was a parable that Jesus spoke, and it was the Good Samaritan, right? And I'm sure many of us are familiar with it and how it came about. They're trying to catch Jesus in his words, which is one of the reasons why I really like Jesus. Like I know, people, is he divine or is he just a great philosopher and all those type of things? But I really just like learning about the man of who Jesus was. I think he was very, I think he would have been fun to be around, to be honest. And, but when they asked him, I can't remember how it exactly come up, but then he said, well, he said like, what should I do in this situation? He says, well, what does the scripture say? And do unto your neighbors, you'd have to do unto yourself, or something to that effect. And he says, well, who's my neighbor, right? Like this guy's like, I mean, can you think of a more d-bag response though? Like, who's my neighbor? And then Jesus tells that great parable, and it's my favorite parable. It's my favorite story in the Bible, because I want to be like the Good Samaritan, and I think he is the epitome of a quiet warrior. Really interesting, right? Like it's really interesting how that individual is so much the epitome of a quiet warrior, but even furthermore, that he is the epitome of excellence, in my opinion. And let me just explain why. I mean, we've all heard this story of what happened in this parable, right? That Jesus taught, where a man was traveling, and he came on thieves, and they robbed him and beat him and left him for dead, right? Left him on the side of the road for dead. And then along came a Levite, right? A man who is committed his life to God, to living the Mosaic law, and he sees him and he walks by, right? Like, and then a priest comes by, a man probably with a similar type of commitment, very, it could be, very prestigious person, very knowledgeable. He sees him and he continues to walk by. And it isn't until the Good Samaritan sees him that he can do something and does something, right? Like the Good Samaritan stops. And this is where I think it's very interesting. A lot of times we teach this parable is taught in Sunday school and around the world as a as a parable to increase our compassion, or to encourage compassion. But I think this is a better one to encourage excellence, because this is what happens. The Good Samaritan sees him, and he goes to him, and he figures out how to bind his wounds, right? Like he, um, you know, patches him up, so to speak, and puts saves his life probably in a way, whatever type of what we probably would consider first aid, right? Like he administers that to this man. And so he had to have some knowledge, right? He had to have some capability. Not only did he have compassion, but he had capability. And so he knew how to help this person. right? At least, to bind up his wounds enough. And then the second thing is he put him on his donkey, right? Which would then indicate that he was strong. He had to be strong, right? I mean, I don't know how many of you have ever had the opportunity to lift a body, right? A human being, another man, if you will. And it's quite the feat. It's 100, I don't know what the average weight is, but let's just say it's 180 pounds. That's a lot of pounds. And the human body is gangly, right? There's joints and everything to it. And so lifting it can be extremely difficult. Anybody that's had to do a one-man lift knows what I'm talking about. Like we had to do that in the army a couple of times, and it's a difficult thing to do, but he was able to do it, right? He was able to lift this man, however way he did it, and he put him on his donkey. So he had that capability, he had that power, that strength, if you will. And then he took him to an inn and stayed there with him and paid for him to stay there and to take care of him, right? And then when time came and he had to go, he told the innkeeper, he gave the innkeeper a certain amount of money. I can't remember the exact amount or if it even was mentioned, but he said, use this money to take care of my friend. And then when I come back, I'll repay you, right? If you spent more than this, let me know and I'll pay you back, right? Like, so he had means. I don't know how many of you, but staying in a hotel is it's not cheap. I mean, it used to be like $100. I think it's like $150 lately is what the average hotel stay. And that's in like just a Best Western or something like that. And so he had all of those capabilities and he used all of them. And the reason why I think it's excellence is he could have stopped, right? Like he could have stopped at just binding up the man's wounds on the side of the road. He could have just propped him up, right? Gave him some water, put a bandage on whatever wounds he had, and he would have been great, right? I mean, he would have been, Jesus could have stopped the parable there and said, look, this guy stopped and at least helped, right? But he went one step further, right? Well, multiple steps further, but he went further. He took this man, recognizing that he needed help, right? And he put him on his donkey and he took him to an inn. Just doing that, he would have been like a saint in a lot of ways, right? I mean, just well, this man, that's amazing that he was willing to just do that. But he went further. And like while he was there, he tried to take care of him and paid for his care. And he could have stopped there, right? He could have been like, look, I've exhausted my funds or whatever, I've got to go, right? I have to leave and go help my whatever he was doing is, if he was a businessman or whatever, he but he didn't. He went another step further and he paid the innkeeper to take care of him to the point of saying, look, whatever you spend more, let me know and I'll pay you back. And I think that's the epitome of excellence. It's not just stopping at what you have to do. Um, it's taking it to that point of excellence of character, excellence of work, right? Doing that little bit extra because it matters. It's our reputation. It's who we are as a person. And that's why I like talking about it as a quiet warrior is like that's what it is. That's who we are as quiet warriors is that we don't just do the bare minimum. We take it to that next step and maybe take it, several steps farther because we need to do what's best. What I like to say with excellence is that we do our best in the things that matter most. And what I mean by that is what matters most are things that are going to last, like our family, our reputation, and our work. And sometimes, like when we're working, you know, we're not just working on that project; we're working on ourselves. Whatever we're doing, it's not just the work that's the outcome that we're building, like a house or working on a deal or whatever. It's what that is also doing for us and the reputation that we're building. It's taking it one step further so that our reputation is even better. Our capabilities are even better. Who we are as a person is more trusted. And that's what I mean by excellence. And those are the kind of things that we do as quiet warriors is we want to become not that we are excellent and we want to maintain that excellence with not everything that we do, but the things that matter most in our lives. And so, gentlemen, I'm grateful that you're on this trip with me. And that's the thing that I just want to, if I could, I just want to just say how thankful I am to you. I know that, life is hard, and I know like there's so many different challenges, but then the fact you're out there and the fact that you're trying and the fact that you're trying to do the right thing, I am trying to do those things, but it's really inspiring to be around men like you, to hear from you and saying, "Hey, I'm trying to do the right things too." I truly believe that that's what changes the country. That's what changes the world. It's not, I mean, there are a lot of, policy changes that I believe that need to happen and stuff. And like we get in, you can have a talk on policy and politics and all those type of things, but really it just comes down to the man in the arena, you and I doing what's right. And by doing that, a lot of times that influence goes all the way to the top. And but it starts with us. And so, gentlemen, have a great night and can't wait to talk to you again. Thanks, guys. Take care. Bye.